Imagine this. You've just scored the winning goal of the season. Your club's fans are chanting your name. And the next thing you know, you've been sold for 3 cows and a crate of beer. Yeah, no signing bonus, no transfer clause, just 3 cows. It sounds like the setup to a bad pub joke, but nope, it actually happened. In football's long and often ridiculous history, not every deal was sealed with millions of euros. Some clubs literally had no cash, so they traded players for cows, pints, or even bricks to build the stadium. And by the end of this video, you'll hear about the deal that was so bizarre, it nearly broke FIFA's sanity. So grab your pint, because this story, it's utterly unbelievable. Football's transfer market today is pure madness. 100 million here, 200 million there. Players moving like NFTs on a billionaire's shopping list. But once upon a time, the game was far simpler. Back when footballers earned about as much as your local plumber, and transfer negotiations sounded like, right, we'll take your striker, and in return, you can have 2 cows and a barrel of beer. It wasn't a metaphor. That was literally the deal. So let's kick off this absurd journey into the strangest football trades ever, where the price tag wasn't measured in cash, but in cattle, booze, and bricks. Story 1. The player traded for a cow and some meat. Let's start with one of football's earliest absurdities, the story of Hugh McLenahan, a Manchester United player in the 1920s. Back then, United wasn't the global brand it is today. In fact, they were broke. Properly broke. They needed to sign McLenahan from Stockport County, but there was just one problem. They couldn't afford the transfer fee. So, United did what any desperate club would do. They sent a butcher. No, seriously, they offered Stockport County a cow and some meat as payment. And the deal went through. McLenahan became a United player, all thanks to a stake-based negotiation. Imagine Ruben Amorim today saying, "Look lads, we can't afford Mbappe, but what if we offer Real Madrid a lifetime supply of beef ribs?" That's not transfer strategy, that's a barbecue. But here's the part that shocked even the players. The deal actually made local headlines. Not because it was embarrassing, but because, back then, bartering was normal. Some clubs literally traded livestock like FIFA Ultimate Team cards. And as crazy as that sounds, our next story takes it up a notch. Story 2. The beer power transfer. Fast forward to the 1970s, a golden era of wild mustaches and even wilder transfer logic. In this tale, a German club called SV Erlenbach wanted to sign a striker named Lutz Pfannenstiel. Yes, the same guy who later became famous for playing in more countries than anyone in history. But back then, Lutz wasn't famous. He was just a kid playing local football. The problem? The club couldn't pay his fee. So what did they do? They offered a crate of beer. And, in true German fashion, the other club said yes. 1 crate of beer, and the deal was done. No agents. No legal documents. Just a handshake and a cold pint. But here's the twist. Lutz went on to have one of the most fascinating careers ever, playing for clubs in 25 different countries, from Namibia to Singapore, even becoming the first player to play in all 6 FIFA confederations. So technically, that crate of beer turned into a global football legend. Forget Moneyball. This was Beerball. Drop your team's name in the comments if you think they'd trade their next striker for a case of Budweiser. So yeah, from beer power transfers to literal legends, football's history never runs out of madness. If you love wild stories like this, hit that subscribe button. There's plenty more where this came from. Now, speaking of madness, wait till you hear about the player who was literally traded for building bricks. Story 3. The player traded for building bricks. Alright, time to get brick serious. In 1998, a Romanian club called Joel Petrosani wanted to sign midfielder Ion Radu. But again, no cash. Romania in the 90s wasn't exactly rolling in sponsorship money. So, the club decided to build their future. They offered the selling team 15 tons of construction bricks. You heard that right. Not money, not players, bricks. The deal was sealed. Radu joined Joel Petrosani, and somewhere out there, a stadium wall might still be standing, made from that transfer. If football history had a DIY edition, this would be it. But here's where it gets crazier. Years later, when reporters asked Radu about it, he laughed and said, "At least I'm part of something that still stands." That's legendary. He's basically the foundation, literally, of the club's story. Story 4. The player sold for meat and sausages. Now we head to the Czech Republic in the 1980s, where things got both meaty and weird. A second division club named TJ Tatran Chodov wanted a goalkeeper, but their budget was tighter than a pair of matchday shorts after Christmas dinner. So they made an offer, a player in exchange for 2 pigs and a bag of sausages. And just like that, deal done. You can't make this up. Somewhere, a goalkeeper's career literally began because someone thought, yeah, that's fair trade. 1 keeper for 2 pigs. The club's manager even joked later, "At least we didn't go hungry that season." That's one way to feed morale. But here's the wild twist. That goalkeeper went on to play for years, and his new club climbed a division. So maybe the pigs were lucky. Story 5. The transfer that nearly got FIFA involved. And now, for the crown jewel of ridiculousness. In the late 90s, an African club in Zambia tried to sign a young midfielder from a neighboring team. They had no money, no sponsors, and no transport. So the club offered something very creative. They said, "Listen, we'll give you 2 cows, a goat, and pay for your team's bus trip to Lusaka." The other team agreed. The problem? The story got international attention, and FIFA got wind of it. And suddenly, there was a problem. The governing body didn't technically have a rule against livestock transfers, but they didn't have one allowing it either. So for weeks, FIFA officials actually debated whether cows could count as economic value in a legitimate football contract. In the end, they quietly ignored it, probably too embarrassed to make an official statement. But to this day, that deal stands as one of the most absurd transfers ever recorded. A man was literally transferred for 2 cows and a goat, and FIFA had to pretend it didn't happen. And here's the twist that ties it all together. These weird trades, cows, bricks, beer, weren't just desperate improvisations. They were symbols of football's roots, when the game belonged to the people, not to corporations. Before billion-dollar buyouts and agents with gold watches, there were handshake deals, pub promises, and players who'd move for passion, not paychecks. Even Pele's first club, Bauru Atletico, couldn't afford proper kits. His mom literally sewed them by hand. So when you think about players being traded for animals or beer, it's easy to laugh. But in a way, that's what made football beautiful. It was human. It was chaotic. It was real. And some of those players, believe it or not, went on to have careers that inspired generations. So maybe, just maybe, the value of a player has never really been about the price tag. So, what would your club be worth if we priced them in cows, bricks, or pints? Imagine Manchester City offering 2 barrels of Heineken for Holland, or Arsenal trying to pay for Declan Rice with a sack of onions. Would your team survive the beer and cow transfer market? Drop your team's name in the comments, and what you'd trade for your favorite player. And if you enjoyed this dive into football's weirdest deals, hit that subscribe button, because next time, we're tackling the club that accidentally won a match with only 7 players. This is Oddball FC, where football's strangest tales become legends. Stay odd, stay curious, and remember, in this game, anything can be transferred.